We all know those stories, right? The ones that just kind of stick with you.
Mm-hmm.
About people who seem totally ordinary, just completely unremarkable.
Yeah, on the surface.
But underneath, they're hiding something. Well, something really dark.
And that's exactly the kind of case we're diving into today. The chilling story of Dennis Nilsen.
Right. And we're using a pretty detailed transcript from a Spanish language documentary to guide us.
Yeah, he gives us a solid chronological path through this really unsettling narrative. We're aiming to hit the key events, understand the core of the case, maybe touch on some psychological aspects.
Without getting bogged down in every single detail, because there's a lot.
Exactly. Think of it as, mapping the main points of Nilsen's life and awful things that happen.
Okay, so let's start right at the beginning then. Dennis Nilsen, born in Fraserburgh, Scotland, November 23rd, 1945.
His parents were Elizabeth White and Olaf Magnus Massim. His father was Norwegian, came over during the war with the Free Norwegian Forces.
And Olaf later took the surname Nilsen, right?
That's right. Dennis was the second of 3 kids. Older brother, younger sister.
But the family life, it wasn't exactly stable from the get-go.
No, not really. His parents actually divorced in 1948. Dennis was only 3.
So after the divorce, his mom, Elizabeth, she leaned on her parents, Andrew and Lily White.
And it seems Dennis formed a really close bond with his maternal grandfather, Andrew.
Yeah, the transcript mentions long walks, visits to the harbor, the beach.
Andrew sounds like he was a really significant figure for him.
Which makes his death even more impactful, presumably.
Absolutely, and potentially very significant, psychologically speaking. His grandfather died suddenly in 1951. Heart attack while fishing.
And his mother told young Dennis that his hero had just gone to a better place.
Yeah, and that explanation, coming after such a sudden loss, it might have been pivotal, maybe contributing to a detached view of death later on, or difficulty processing grief properly.
That's a really interesting thought, because the transcript does say that after his grandfather died, Nilsen became much quieter, more withdrawn.
Spent time alone, watching boats, didn't really join in family stuff much, wasn't big on affection apparently.
And there are hints, maybe, of feeling a bit isolated, even resentful.
Well, the source mentions he felt his siblings, Olaf Jr. and Sylvia, got more attention from his mom, grandmother, or stepfather later on.
Though it does say he played with his sister Sylvia, so it's complex.
Always is, isn't it? But those feelings of being overlooked, they could be important.
Okay, moving into his teens. He seems to have felt a bit constrained, maybe, in his hometown.
Yeah, sounds like it. At 14, he joined the Army Cadet Force.
And interestingly, he was actually above average academically. Good at history, art.
Which kind of suggests, some intelligence, maybe a sensitive side. It's such a contrast to what came later.
Definitely. After school, in 1961, he worked briefly in a cannery.
And that experience apparently pushed him towards the Army. He wanted to be a chef, join the catering corps.
His initial time in the Army sounds like it was pretty positive.
Yeah, he did well. But it was also when his homosexual desires started emerging.
Which he kept completely secret.
Totally. There's that detail about avoiding communal showers so nobody would guess.
God, the pressure of that secrecy back then must have been incredibly isolating.
Oh, for sure. That kind of internal conflict, hiding such a core part of yourself, it absolutely breeds alienation. Makes real intimacy incredibly hard.
You wonder how much that fed into his later problems forming relationships.
It's a key question. In 1964, he was stationed in West Germany, Osnabrück.
And that's when the drinking started, to cope with shyness.
Yeah, and also, this is where we see the first hints of those really disturbing fantasies about unconscious men.
Right. Things start taking a darker turn. After Germany, he was a cook in Norway for a bit.
Then came a much rougher assignment in 1967, Al-Mansoura prison in Aden, Yemen.
A dangerous place. His regiment took losses.
Nilsen himself was attacked by a taxi driver, fought him off.
That kind of exposure to violence, it must leave a mark.
You'd think so, yeah. Even if the transcript doesn't spell out the psychological fallout. Anyway, after 11 years, he leaves the Army in October 1972. Made it to corporal.
And goes back home.
But not for long. His mom was apparently worried he didn't have a girlfriend.
And his brother, Olaf Jr., accused him of being gay in front of everyone.
Which led to Nilsen just leaving permanently, moved to London, never spoke to his brother again. Just occasional letters to other family.
So London, anonymity, maybe more freedom.
Probably felt that way. He even got a video camera, documented some experiences, and he joined the Metropolitan Police.
Liked it at first, but missed the Army life.
Yeah, that camaraderie. Nights became lonely again. Alcohol was the companion.
Summer of 73, he starts hitting the gay bars.
Looking for connection, but the encounters were just fleeting, left him feeling empty.
He wanted something real, a relationship.
And he did find someone, for a while, a significant relationship.
That didn't last.
No. And when it ended, it seemed to just cement this idea in his head that his personal life and his job couldn't mix.
So he resigned from the police, December 73.
Had a brief stint as a security guard, then landed a stable job as a civil servant in May 74.
Described as quiet, conscientious, even got involved in the union.
Yeah. And about 18 months later, he meets David Gallatin.
And this seemed like it could be the real thing at first.
Looked that way, moved in together, fixed up the place. Nilsen apparently felt quite content for a while.
But then, tension.
Yeah, started sleeping separately,
Yeah.
then bringing other people home, casual partners,
Leading to arguments.
verbal fights, yeah. And eventually, they split up. Nilsen's back to square one. Loneliness again.
You mentioned his increasing isolation after that breakup, and this conviction he had that he just wasn't fit to live with anyone. How does that feed into what happens next?
Well, it's crucial, isn't it? This cycle of trying, failing, feeling rejected. It likely just deepens that isolation. And maybe that conviction that he can't live with anyone starts to warp things, twists his idea of connection into something, well, something monstrous, as a way to not be alone.
His work suffered a bit, but he took on overtime, seemed like a loner to colleagues.
More failed attempts at relationships. And by late 1978, he seems to have just given up on the idea of sharing his life normally.
And then, December 29th, 1978, a really bleak moment.
Yeah. Drinking heavily, feeling totally isolated. He meets a 14-year-old kid, Stephen Dean Holmes.
Irish kid coming back from a concert, couldn't buy booze.
Nilsen offers him drinks, company, takes him back to his place.
Stephen falls asleep.
And Nilsen's terror of being alone kicks in the worst possible way. He decides he has to keep him.
He asphyxiates him with a dressing gown, drowns him in a bucket, buries him under the floorboards.
And the transcript says he kept the body for companionship.
Yeah.
For 7 months, using it sometimes before burning it.
It's just hard to comprehend.
And it doesn't stop. December 3rd, 1979, meets Kenneth James Ockenden, a 23-year-old Canadian student, in a bar.
Lures him back with the promise of showing him the city.
Murders him. Strangles him with a headphone cord.
Takes Polaroids of the body.
Poe. Keeps Kenneth's body on his bed for hours while he watches TV. Then under the floorboards.
And that detail about bringing the body out sometimes to sit with while he drank and watched TV.
It speaks volumes about that disturbed need for, connection, control. It's chilling.
May 1980, another victim. Martin Brendan Duffy, 16 years old, hitchhiking.
Nilsen offers food, shelter, strangles him in his sleep, drowns him in the kitchen sink.
Bathes with the body, marvels at his youth.
Then buries him under the floorboards after 2 days.
This pattern, lure, murder, keep the body for this twisted companionship.
It's deeply disturbing. And the transcript says 5 more victims followed in the next few months, only one identified. William David Sutherland, 26, from Edinburgh.
And with all these bodies, practical problems arise.
Oh yeah, insect infestations. The smell, especially in summer, a foul odor.
He tried masking it. Deodorizers, insecticide.
Tried to, yeah. But the smell of decay, it persisted.
Yet he continued. September 18th, 1980. Malcolm Stanley Barlow, 23.
An epileptic orphan. Nilsen had actually helped him before.
But by now, there's no room under the floor.
So he stored Malcolm's body in a wardrobe.
End of 1980. She has to deal with all the bodies.
Dismembers them, burns everything in a bonfire out back, uses an old tire to try and hide the smell of burning flesh.
Then in 1981, he moves. Top floor apartment.
Which creates new problems for his activities. No floor space, no garden access.
But it doesn't stop him.
No. March 1982. John Peter Howgate, 23. Murdered. Dismembered.
And disposal becomes flushing parts down the toilet, putting bones out with the trash.
Exactly. Then May 82, Carl Stott, 21 years old, met him in a bar.
Carl was depressed over a breakup.
Nilsen tries to strangle him, but Stott keeps regaining consciousness over 2 days.
Nilsen gives some vague story, takes him to a train station.
Yeah. And Carl Stott becomes the only known survivor, utterly unaware of how close he came.
It's just staggering how normal his work life seems through all this. We talked about that facade.
It really drives it home, doesn't it? That potential for hidden darkness. He's going to work, being seen as conscientious.
Getting promoted.
Right. Promoted to executive officer, transferred in June 82. While doing this, it shows how deceptive appearances can be, How little we might see.
Just 3 months after the promotion, another murder. Archibald Graham Allen, 27. A father.
Lured back with an offer of dinner. Body kept in the bathtub for 3 days before dismemberment.
Then, January 26, 1983. Stephen Neil Sinclair, 20. Heroin addict. History of self-harm.
His body was stored under the bathtub.
And this is where it starts to unravel. Mundanely.
Totally mundane. February 3rd, 1983. Blocked drains in the building.
Tenants complain. Local plumber can't fix it.
5 days later, February 8th, they call in a private plumber, Mike Catron.
And the transcript mentions the smell. Overwhelming. Foul.
He investigates, finds the septic tank, and discovers decomposed flesh, bones.
Just horrific. Uncovered because of plumbing. That contrast again.
Absolutely. Catron tells his supervisor, Gary Wheeler. They come back the next morning.
Drains are clearer, mostly.
Except for some flesh and 4 bones in a pipe coming directly from Nilsen's top floor flat.
Police are called. Chief Inspector Detective Peter J. takes the case.
Pathologist Professor David Bowen confirms the bones are human.
So the detectives just wait for Nilsen to come home from work.
Yeah. He arrives. They ask about the drains.
He plays dumb at first.
Briefly.
Yeah.
Then just calmly admits it. Says the blockage is human remains.
Tells them they're in plastic bags. In his wardrobe.
And says it's a long story. He'll tell them everything at the station.
He's arrested. On the way, they ask how many victims.
And he just says, cool as anything, 15 or 16.
Later that night, Detective Chief Superintendent Jeffrey Chambers and the pathologist go to the flat. Recover the bags.
The interrogation starts February 11th. Lasts 11 days.
Over 30 hours of confession. Detailed.
Trying to help identify victims with descriptions. Even when he couldn't remember names, he remembered exactly how they died, how long he kept the bodies.
The sheer scale. The coldness. It's mind-boggling. He's charged with Stephen Sinclair's murder, sent to Brixton Prison.
And his mood is described as resigned, relieved almost, still thinking he's innocent until proven guilty.
Meanwhile, forensics search the garden of his old place, find teeth, bone fragments.
Archibald Allen is identified. Dental records, old jaw fractures.
And Nilsen starts writing letters to Detective Peter J.
Letters described as narcissistic. Focused on himself, no empathy for victims, no remorse, just his own experience.
The trial kicks off at the Old Bailey, May 26, 1983. 5 counts of murder, 2 attempted murder initially.
Lawyer Ronald Moss. Nilsen wants to plead guilty to everything. Protests about wearing prison uniform, gets confined to his cell.
Then there's an incident in August, throws urine, assaults officers.
Gets found guilty of assault, 56 days in isolation.
Then, just weeks before the trial proper, he fires his lawyer.
Gets Rolf Hames. Agrees to plead not guilty by diminished responsibility.
So the whole trial hinges on his mental state.
Exactly. Did he have a personality disorder so bad he couldn't help it? That was their defense argument.
Prosecution says no severe disorder. He knew what he was doing.
The trial resumes October 24th, 83. More charges added. Nilsen himself just looks unremarkable in court.
Carl Stott testifies. The survivor recounts the attack. Powerful stuff.
Detective J talks about the arrest, the calm confession.
Detective Chambers reads Nilsen's formal confession, all the graphic details, rituals, necrophilia, storage, dismemberment, disposal.
You can imagine the jury's reaction. Visibly affected, reportedly.
November 3rd, the jury retires.
November 4th, they're back. Unanimous guilty verdict, 6 counts of murder, 1 attempted murder.
Judge David Johnson sentences him. Life imprisonment. Recommended minimum 25 years.
He goes into the prison system. Category A prisoner, own cell, mixes with others, doesn't appeal.
1992, he does that TV interview.
Yeah, despite the Home Office trying to stop it. Broadcast in full January 93. More chilling details emerge.
Then, December 94, his minimum term is scrapped, replaced with a whole life tariff.
Meaning he'll never get out. And Nilsen apparently just accepted it.
His later years in prison sound quite structured.
He wrote a massive autobiography, unpublished, translated books into Braille, wrote, painted, composed music, corresponded with loads of people.
Then, May 2018, he gets sick.
Taken to hospital, abdominal pain. It's a ruptured abdominal aortic aneurysm.
Has surgery. Goes back to prison.
Suffers a pulmonary embolism. Dies in his cell, May 12th, 2018.
Official cause. The embolism and bleeding related to the aneurysm. Reports said he refused more medical help near the end.
And the final sobering point. At least 4 of his victims were never identified. Their families never knew what happened.
So that's the deep dive into Dennis Nilsen. This chilling duality, the ordinary man, the horrific reality hidden beneath.
It really leaves you thinking, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What does a case like this tell us about the potential for darkness behind a normal face, and that lingering mystery of the unidentified? It's a stark reminder of the devastation these acts cause, and the questions that sometimes remain forever unanswered. Makes you really ponder the complexities of human nature and the echoes these crimes leave behind.